Good morning.
Morning. I wasn't letting anybody else in for a little bit here. Do you have any screen sharing you need to do?
No.
Okay. Well, I thought if you did, I want to make sure you could do what you wanted to do before I let anybody else in,
Yeah,
because I normally don't let them in.
the screen share button's green for me, so if there would be something I need to share, but we should be good.
Okay. Good deal. Well, I'm gonna grab a sheet of paper here because I told them they would earn a CE if they stayed and chatted with you.
I know we have
Had
printing on the list to talk about. Was there anything else we want to cover, or we'll just see what we get for questions?
Well, I figured we'd see what we get for questions, too. Because I didn't ask for in advance, I just said, that you can talk about filtering, you can talk about E-rate, you can talk about, and I saw they just opened the E-rate window there. They finalized it. They didn't just open it, but they finalized it. So people know when that is now. And some people might not understand what that is. Like my Vicky Casper from Hildreth, I know because she called
Yeah,
me and I
we've
said,
been
well,
working with Vicky a lot.
yeah. And I told her, I said, I know that it's December 31st is not the deadline. I said, it's always 28 days before the last day of the other one.
Right, and extensions are easy to get too, so it's not a big deal.
Okay. Yeah. Well, like I say, I just didn't want to, I was trying to give her the heads up on that, but it's been so long since I've done my own E-rate
Yeah.
because I haven't
Yeah, so the
filed.
470 window's been open for a little while. Now they just opened the 471 window, which is kind of the second phase of doing your E-rate stuff. So,
Right. And then the last day of 471 determines the last day of 470 because of the 28-day window thing. And
right.
I couldn't explain that to her correctly because I was trying to tell her, I said, it's more than that. But she was kind of panicky because she thought December 31st was the last day. And I said, no, 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 we got it. So I only have one person in the waiting room yet because my group's kind of late showing up. So we will get figured out who all's coming in. And then next month I have Amanda talking about WordPress, and that's going to make everybody crazy because
Yeah.
I've got so many of them that can't even log into their web pages anymore. And I told them, I said, we either need to figure out how to update these or get rid of them because you don't want somebody new moving into town. And then they do a Google search for public library in their town and they find something that has something from 2018 was the last time it had anything posted on it. So we need to either figure out how to log into them, update them, keep them up, or delete those.
Yeah, I had the question about, you know, a lot of libraries have moved to their Facebook page, kind of being their primary interface to the community. So, what they consider doing with their web page is just making it a place where they post their policies and their minutes, like library board minutes, and
Right, and not have it be a
not
blog.
worry about it being the place that they post, blogs and notices and hours and all that. It could just simply be a little one-page thing that's just, here's where we're located, here's our phone number. You want to have hours on it and keep it up to date, and then here's our policies, here's the link to our policies, and here's the link to our board minutes. And that'll meet your certain your for library certification, that'll score you those points for library certification. And then if you want to have on your web page, you could have a big Facebook that says, for current information, follow us on Facebook. And they click
Right,
there,
and a
like
link
the
to that.
library, and
Yes.
because like I said, even a lot of businesses these days are abandoning websites and using social media to provide all their updates and stuff. So
Yeah, and that's a great idea. I think that's because Facebook doesn't really provide a good place
it doesn't.
to
Facebook doesn't
post
really provide you a
policies.
way to meet those certification points. And I guess if you count up your points, um, I'm not sure if those are actually definitely required, or it's just a matter of you can forego those points and still have the bronze or the silver rating you want.
Right.
I guess that comes into play too, but
No, I've got a lot of them that are very specific about their points. They want to get as many as they can
yeah.
because it kind
So
of bumps them up into
yeah,
silver
that's
or
kind of the compromise I recommend, is just, that website just becomes you have a link to it off of Facebook, and that's where you put your policies, and that's where you put your board minutes. And I think that pretty much covers, um, hours and location might be on there too, but that should be pretty static also. I have run into
right,
some of the little libraries, that have hours on have a page on the city website,
right,
and maybe that's all they need to do then. But they would need to have obviously the ability to put their uplink to their policy document and their minutes on there. But I've seen some
right.
libraries that had old hours on the city site, old hours on their website, and maybe the Facebook was the page that had what their current hours were
That
on it. So,
was all up to dated. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll let a few people in here. It's 10 o'clock, so we'll see who's coming. I didn't know about today being a holiday, almost a holiday.
The holidays,
So we've got, I need to figure out who Jennifer is. Hey, Jennifer, can you put in the chat or open your mic and, oh, there you are. That's who Jennifer is. Gotcha. That way I can give the right Jennifer credit here today, since there's a CE allotted. So we're getting a few more in. It averages anywhere from 13 to 18 usually. But again, I'm not sure about today. So, but all of you who are here already, be sure and think of your public computer or any kind of computer or filter questions that you might have for Sherm.
yeah, really, if you have any questions about technology in your library, I'm happy to assist. So,
Any kind of technology. So we'll get, like I say, we'll get everybody in here. I'm writing down names. Oh, here, Krista's popping in. She'll tell us a little bit about E-rate probably. And yeah. All right. So does anybody want to start off with a great question for Sherm about anything about technology in your library? Sometimes they're a quiet group on Thursday mornings. You can put it in the chat too, because I'll be looking at that.
Good morning. I always have lots to say, so I'll go first. So we're looking at getting a library app, and I just wondered how many people have apps and
You're talking about a mobile app for
a
the
mobile
phone?
app? Mhm.
Okay. That depends. What I always have done at my previous libraries is, the WordPress that I always use for my library websites actually had a mobile feature where it would automatically, configure a website based on the device connecting to it. So it automatically reformat your website if somebody was connecting to it with like a smartphone. So it was more usable and more user-friendly on a smartphone. And I found that worked really well, for me. And then, we could have the instructions on, because if you're going to do overdrive, they're going to need to download the Libby app anyway and things like that. So it's really dependent on where you want to go with that. There are app companies that have, library apps that you can set up. It's kind of like maybe having another website to manage though. So now you're having to manage that app to make sure it's kept up to date, with the features and the information that you may be also putting on your website and that you're putting on Facebook and so on and so forth. So it's really up to you. But
I
if you
think
have a website that you're diligent about keeping up to date, and I've had a lot of success with just putting a mobile widget into my website that then reformatted it so it looked really sharp and worked really well on mobile devices.
yeah, I think we're looking sharply at our going with our TLC because we have them for our ILS, but it's good to know what's out there, and it's all kind of new to me. But also, I had a question if you know anything about panic buttons. We're
Yeah,
looking.
we have one, we installed at our library. When I first started at Sydney, we didn't have one. And you have the issue where if you're having an issue in the library, if that person is right at the desk, it's very difficult to pick up the phone and call 911 or the police department. So we had a panic button installed and it was tied into our phone system. So when you press that panic button, it would call, 911 and it played a recording saying, hey, this is the library. We're having an incident. We need somebody to respond immediately. And that way you weren't tipping off the individual causing a disturbance of what was going on. And then the thing you need to be diligent about is when you have that panic button, you need to schedule tests on a regular basis with your police department saying, the first Monday of every month or something, we're going to do a test of the panic button to confirm that it's working. Because you don't want it to just let sit and sit and sit. Maybe a change gets made to the phone system. Everybody forgot about the panic button, and then when you need to use it, it doesn't work anymore.
Oh, that's good to know.
And then depending on what kind of phone system you have, at Sydney, we still have what we call the old Centrex style phone system,
We
the old
actually,
analog style. So the panic button, it was pretty straightforward and pretty affordable. A lot of city offices have moved to voice over IP systems and maybe have migrated the library onto that same system. So you need to know what type of phone system you have. So you're talking to the right vendor for the right, panic button product. Is it an old analog system or is it a digital voice over IP system that it needs to integrate with?
yeah, we're actually an old analog system. Our phones have reached end of life, but we're looking at going over with the city to the voiceover. So
Yeah,
that's good to
so
know.
you may want to consider, if you do the panic button down, it's probably going to be a throwaway investment if you
Right.
migrate over to the voice.
Yeah. All I know is if people are upset and they see you calling the police, they get even more upset.
Yeah.
So
Now, the other policy that I always had
yeah,
at my libraries is we never were single staff, and that can be a big challenge, for a lot of our libraries. We had the firm rule that we always had two people on staff in the library. So if there's an incident, you did have a person that could go to the back room,
right.
also make the phone call if that needed to happen. A lot of libraries don't have that luxury, so yeah, the panic button is a nice thing. Do you have security cameras in place already too?
We do. Our security cameras are kind of wonky. They're going to
Yeah.
be updated too. So
Yeah,
those are
so
things in our capital plan this year, but
yeah,
we're limping by with both.
why I would bring that up is if you're looking at a voice over IP system, a lot of those have become integrated systems where not only is it your phones, but it can be your alarms, your security cameras, everything is integrated into one system for really easy use and ease of management. And again, if you're looking at making an investment in the security camera system, you probably want to look at that as maybe part of that voice over IP setup too.
Okay, that's good advice. Thank you.
All right. All right, Sherm, I got a thing in the chat wondering if your volume is not real loud. Is there a way to turn
I'll see.
turn
I'll
yours
set up a
up?
little closer to the mic. Is that better?
There, that's better. I think that
Okay.
is. Yep. Yep. And the person said too.
I'll quit slouching
Um
and have some nice posture here at my desk then.
the looks like Lori and Kozad's gonna be sending you some pictures of her equipment.
Okay, great.
So what's that about? Is there something that you can do
What the
with pictures?
pictures do is it helps us with two things. I can look at the pictures, and if they have the make and the model number of the equipment, I can look it up and see how old it is and see what its capabilities are. And that's played into two things we've really been pushing here at the commission. DNS filter that I've been doing a lot of installations that went live in August. We've got 21 libraries utilizing it now. And that is the filtering solution. If you're an E-rate library, this provides the SIPA compliance. You need to be an E-rate library. Even if you're not an E-rate library and you don't want to do the SIPA filtering, it does provide a significant cybersecurity benefit. So it could also be set up where we're just using it for the cybersecurity filtering. I think a lot of people don't realize that the first moat or wall in cybersecurity protection with a firewall is filtering, where you're just basically filtering out all the bad domains and or websites, so your people aren't even able to connect to these websites that are known to be used for botnet, crypto, phishing, that kind of stuff. And then we can also turn on the filtering of adult categorized sites to give you SIPA compliance. If you're not interested in that, we can set it up so it's just providing the security benefits. If you don't have a firewall in place, I would highly, highly recommend that you at least have this. It provides a really good first level of protection to people using the library's network to prevent them from getting out to the known bad places. And how it works is we actually like to enable that on the router so that the library's entire network is filtered. It just makes it very easy to set up. And that way, if you get new computers or new devices, we don't have to worry about going and touching them individually. We've already got the filtering in place across the network. That also filters the devices that are using your library's network. Now, without a firewall in place, the DNS filtering is pretty easy to work around if you own that device and have the administrative rights to it. You can go in and change your DNS settings to circumvent it. A lot of people don't know how to do that, so we tend to be, for the public use of the Wi-Fi network, it tends to offer kind of security through ignorance, but it's a great thing to have in place. The other thing that we do with the DNS filter is we block BitTorrent and point-to-point file transfer sites for the most part. The reason we do that is the libraries are usually targeted. If I'm going to download pirated movies and music and software, I'm not going to do it on my home network. I can go to my local library with my laptop, connect to the Wi-Fi, and download that stuff. One of the things we block with the filtering technology is the BitTorrent app and the known websites, domains that are used for pirated stuff. So that, I don't know if anybody's at a library where you've ever gotten a letter from the RIAA or NPA saying, hey, we're fining you $10,000 because you're being your site's being used, your IP address is being reported as being used for illegal downloads. I've had that happen a couple times where our city attorneys had to reply, it's the library, we're not paying you, but I told our IT guy to block BitTorrent, and that usually makes that go away. They kind of dump that responsibility now on the ISPs. So you may get a letter from your ISP saying, hey, we're seeing your IP address, your network's being used for illegal file downloads. You need to, do something to block it. This is a tool that can block that. Like I said, it can be circumvented because it's not a firewall. If you actually have a firewall in place, you can have a rule in your firewall that says all DNS traffic has to go to here. So if somebody, even if they change the settings on their device to try and use another DNS service, the firewall will see that and say, you can't go there. You have to go here for DNS resolution. And let me pause right here. So directory name services is what DNS is. And what that does is anytime you type a URL in your web browser, it's going out to a DNS server, which is kind of called the phone book of the internet. And it's looking that name, the DNS server saying, oh, you're trying to get to google.com. Here's the IP address that will get you there. And then your browser utilizes that IP address to actually make that connection. So that's how the security steps in. So let's say I want to go to nastyplace.com. I type it into the browser on the library computer. It goes out to DNS filter. DNS filter says, oh, nastyplace.com is on our block list because it's a known pirate malware site. So then what they do is instead of sending you to the actual nasty place, they send back a message to your computer that will cause the DNS filter block screen to come up and say this site is blocked because it's a known malware site. And so what makes the security so good is your computer never gets accessed by the bad player. That connection gets blocked at the DNS server. So it offers really, really good cybersecurity.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that it would. So you don't have to, if you don't
Yeah.
want to block adult
Right. So if
content
you're a library
because
that's
of,
not interested in doing the SIPA compliant filtering, we can turn it on just to do the cybersecurity. I highly, highly recommend it. There's other free sites. One that's really popular is one called Quad9, but you need to have somebody that knows how to go into your router and configure that to work. Most of the libraries that we've had on DNS filter, that's one of the things I've done on their behalf. I could use Zoom, remote desktop with Zoom to connect to one of their computers and then log into the router and set it all up for them. If you have an ISP that handles all your router configurations and stuff, I can provide them the information they need to turn on DNS filter.
okay. Well, that makes it a whole bunch easier than trying to figure it out ourselves.
Right. It was a big roadblock we saw to E-rate compliance is, it's a technology that people, if you're geek like me, great, but if you're not, it's hard to understand what you need to go do there. They're not very descriptive, and I'm happy to be able to assist with that. The Nebraska Library Commission provides DNS filter at no charge to the libraries. There's no charge for my assistance at all. And again, if you have other technology you're having issues with, I am happy to assist. I think a lot of it, we could schedule a Zoom, I could remote in, see what's going on and see if we can figure it out, or I can give you the information you need to pursue a solution. So.
Oh, that's terrific. A ways back, you said something about the WordPress that you used. You were able to do a mobile app. Do you know if the one the commission
I
uses
don't know
has
if the
that?
commissions allows for that, because when I set up WordPress, I set it up on my own hosting server, so I had full, complete control. I used to program websites, so I like having that ability to go in and modify the website to do some of the things I liked it to do. And WordPress has a mobile widget, and this might be something if you contact Amanda
Yeah,
about,
she's on
she
next
could help
month.
you with that. So there's a widget that I paid for, is what they call it in WordPress lingo. And it's an app I could add to my website. And then when you connect it, it would detect what type of device it was. And then it automatically reformatted my website to look good and be more usable on that smaller screen size of whatever it was that was connecting in, and
Okay.
it worked very, very well at all my libraries that I've utilized. I'm a big WordPress fan. That if you were going to do a website, it's the most widely used what we call content management system, CMS, in the world for websites. They have so many different widgets and stuff available for it. It's just a really, really good tool.
Well, and we do have Amanda scheduled to be here next third Thursday, which is January 18th. So I was making notes to ask her that question. So hold the thought, guys, and we'll ask Amanda when she's here if ours has that, or if she can add it, or if we all need to buy the separate widget, or if the commission will take care of that and onto the main subscription or whatever it is we have. So we'll figure
Right.
that out. All right. So yeah, the idea of checking the panic button is a great idea.
And
So
I
that
would
was
point out there that if you think your library already has filtering in place, because maybe you are an E-rate library, you're thinking of becoming one, or you have filtering on just like maybe just on your kids' computers, when's the last time you checked it to make sure it actually worked?
right.
Unfortunately, as DNS filters I've been rolling out, we've had several E-rate libraries that thought they were filtering, and I just had them, hey, just go to this website, and then you hear them groan because the nasty stuff came up on their computer at the library because the filtering that they were told was in place was not in place and was not
Was
working.
not working.
And so they were not in compliance for E-rate. So the DNS filter we have, it's a quick fix. We can get up and get it running. The other nice thing is we had one library that had a firewall and they were being charged a substantial license as part of their firewall for content filtering. They were able to drop the content filtering license on their firewall and just put a rule on their firewall to use DNS filter that we were paying for, and we saved them a significant licensing fee on that firewall by using the DNS filter that the Library Commission's providing rather than paying for the license on their firewall to have it.
So it can be a great money saver.
Yeah,
And
so everybody, I mean, everybody should have a firewall in place. I can't stress that enough, especially in this day and age. But there are some things with like the DNS filter we're offering that might save you some significant licensing costs for that device if you don't have to pay for the content filtering service on it.
so there is a question in the chat. How do they get on your list to
Just shoot me an
get
email.
DNS lined
Yeah,
up?
shoot me an email. We can set up a Zoom session. The big thing is I need a picture, or if you want to email it to me, the make and model number of your router. That lets me go pull the information on it and see how current the router is and if it has the capability to do what we need to do to make DNS filter work. Or if you have an ISP, they're the ones that manage the box. You don't have, the other thing is I have to have the administrator log into the router. We've run into some libraries that didn't have it. The person that used to do it for them moved away or whatever happened, and we had to do a factory reset on the router so we could get access to it again. If we have to do something like that, I would be more comfortable coming on site than doing a factory reset of your router remotely. And I have done that. Other ones, like I said, if you have your ISP or you have a tech company, you pay to do that work for them. I can coordinate with them and like be available when they're actually making the changes, or I can just send them the information and they set it up. We've done it all different ways.
Okay, so they need to send you an email, and if they can, include a picture of the router.
Yeah, or if you want to provide my
And
contact information to your IT person and they can shoot me an email, give me a call. I can tell them, here's what it is, this is how it works, here's what needs to happen to get it all put in place.
okay, so that's terrific to know. All right, so yeah,
Denise,
do
did you
a
want me to
photo
talk
of the
about
router.
printing? I know initially when you had looked to invite me this morning, you had some printing issues you wanted to talk about. I know one of the things, printing's kind of become the hot app in the libraries I supported. People just don't have printers at home anymore. So they'll pop in the library and they'll want to print from their phone, which has been problematic, especially if it's a library that has really old printers and older technology. It may not be something they can offer. So printing can get fairly complicated, especially when somebody comes in with their phone and they want to connect to your Wi-Fi and print to your printer and they can't do it. I'm just going to throw this right out from the gate. When I was working for Omaha Public Library, when I first moved back to Omaha, we had people come in all the time. And we had a web application they could send their job to that would come in and then print. What may be easier if you get somebody that they want to print it from their phone, but they have no idea how to print it from their phone. I would offer my email address. They could email the document to me from their phone. I would print it for them, however many pages it was, they would pay. And then if they wanted to, I could have them watch my screen as I deleted the email and then went in my delete queue and blew the whole thing away so that they knew the email was deleted and I didn't retain a copy of it. If we were printing legal documents or medical documents or something like that. And that was a really, really easy way to get them what they wanted without going through a lot of complication. What I see a lot where you're trying to do printing over wireless is it can really be dependent on how your Wi-Fi network is set up, how your printer is set up. It can get very, very complicated very quickly. The one thing I will hear is people say, hey, we installed a new printer, it's connected to our Wi-Fi network, and none of our people can see it. And the issue is when you set up your router to do Wi-Fi, you have an option of doing kind of what we call the protected Wi-Fi network and the guest Wi-Fi network. So the protected Wi-Fi network is the one that you set up initially on the router where you have to have a password. Meanwhile, you don't have to, but it prompts you to make a password secured Wi-Fi network. That network is considered kind of the protected staff level network from my standpoint, and that's used for like the library devices. Then you can also turn on the guest network that the public can come and use. A lot of the guest network, when you turn those on and the Wi-Fi routers have a default setting that puts them into what we call isolation mode. And it's a great security feature for guest networks. So if I come into the library or the coffee shop and I connect to the guest network and they have the isolation mode turned on, all my device can do is access the internet. I cannot see any of the other devices on the network. So if I'm at a busy place where we've got 4 or 5 people on the guest network and maybe I'm a bad player, I come in, I can't see or try and hack the devices. The router totally isolates me and only allows my traffic to go out to the internet. So what happens is you turn on the guest network, you've been using it, it's great, and then you get the Wi-Fi printer and you put it on maybe your secured network, not your guest network, and they can't see it, or you realize it needs to be on the guest network, but your router's got it isolated mode, so they still can't see the printer. So there's some troubleshooting I'm happy to assist with. Again, if you're having those kind of printing problems, I can zoom in, we can look at the setup. If you have the admin access to your router, we can see how the Wi-Fi network is configured, see if that's the source of our problem. The other thing I'll talk about just quickly printing is Microsoft and the printer vendors got together and invented a thing called WSD, Web Services for Devices. And when I was running big networks, WSD was the bane of my existence as a LAN administrator, both in the corporate world and in libraries. Because when it first came out, it was a piece of junk. It caused more problems than it solved. And what it was supposed to solve was, back in the old days, if I got a new printer, it had a USB connection on it, and I plugged it into my PC and everything was great. Well, now everybody started having home networks, and they wanted to share that printer with all the computers in their house. Well, I can't plug a USB connection into all my computers. I can't plug it into my tablet. I have to have a Wi-Fi method accessing the printer. So Microsoft and the printer vendors got together and invented WSD. And what this does is if you have WSD turned on your printer, it broadcasts its availability to the network. So if I'm on my Windows or device, I can go into printing and I'll see this device out there broadcasting its existence on the network. I can connect to it. And then in Windows, that would cause it to automatically download the driver that I needed to actually print and stuff. So it was supposed to enable easy printer setup kind of for the home network. And in a home network environment, it worked pretty good. The business network environment where I had a lot of printers and a lot of computers, it just screwed everything up. So back in the old day, when I got a new printer, the first thing I would do is turn off WSD and set it up kind of the old-fashioned way with our IP stuff. And since it was just coworkers printing to it, we didn't have the security issues that you would have like where library where we're offering kind of public access to our network. So you need to be cognizant of how your Wi-Fi is set up. There's a lot of little gotchas that get in there that can keep it all from working. And it's just a matter of kind of knocking down the dominoes to figure out where our issue resides and getting it resolved.
It's like quite a few people do the email it to me workaround.
That just saves so much time and let me get on with my life and help the next person at the desk. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if they insisted it was confidential, we could go through, we had a sheet, we could hand them like, here's everything you have to go through on your phone to print it without my assistance. And, back in the COVID days, we weren't really excited about touching other people's phones and stuff to help them with it. So it could take a while,
Right.
especially if they weren't
Yeah.
even, all they want to do is pop in, print this one thing and you were never going to see them again. Do we really want to go to all this work to set it all up on their device when it's a one-time thing?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, the frustration level is a lot lower on that. Just email it to me and I'll print it
Yeah,
for you.
time is valuable, and I found that whatever was going to get them in and out the fastest, that was pretty much the solution they were going to go for.
Right. Looks like Lori's in Cozad is now thinking about, after hearing you talk, that maybe her IT guy can just put it on their router, the DNS filter on their router. So it sounds like Lori's going to be contacting you about.
Yep. Just give me a call, shoot me an email, and we'll set it up.
Okay, so Lori says they have trouble printing Amazon return labels. So when people need to send things back to Amazon.
Yeah, so the problem is all the browser vendors now, when you open like a PDF attached to an email, they used to automatically open. Is everybody familiar with Adobe Reader, the free PDF reader that Adobe has out there? So where this printing issue resolves in is, let's say I'm using Chrome, there's a PDF attachment. Chrome does not by default open Adobe Reader, even if it's loaded on the computer. They open it up with their own browser window. And I've seen lots of printing issues trying to print a PDF that's been automatically popped into the browsers, a tab in your browser, a window in your browser. My recommendation is you can try and print that. And if you have a problem, the next thing you want to do is download that document to the computer, open it in Adobe Reader, and I guarantee it'll print perfect every time. That's the workaround for it. I'm kind of at the point now that if I open a PDF and I know I'm going to want to print it, I just download it, go to my downloads folder on my computer, open it up with Adobe Reader, and if I print it with the Adobe Reader, it works perfect every single time. If I try and print it from the window, the tab that opens up in Google, especially if it's got graphics in it, it seems to well, this is Google thinking nobody prints anything anymore. So we're going to make this available, but we're not going to really put any effort into making sure it works right 100% of the time. Adobe, this is their bread and butter. Every public computer, I think the library, every staff computer, you should have Adobe Reader on it. And if you're going to print a PDF, just use Adobe Reader to print and you'll solve all your problems.
Okay, so we need Adobe Reader on our public computers,
Right.
as well as
free
the
PDF readers out there. I don't like them. Adobe's is free, and they pretty much are the creators and owners of PDF, and it just makes life so much easier. I think there's one baked into Windows too, but again, Adobe Reader just works flawlessly every time for me.
all right. So again, a little bit of question with this. Okay, so if you forward an Amazon return label, then Amazon wants you to log into the Amazon account. So what they should do is download it and then forward it to you.
Well, no, they could forward it to you, and then when you get it on the email, you can download it on your computer from the email and make sure you're using Adobe Reader to print it. You can go into your Windows settings and you can make Adobe Reader your default for PDF documents. And generally, if you open a PDF at all, Adobe Reader will immediately take over and open them up, and you'll be able to print just fine. But that's the trick, is you want to use Adobe Reader to do the printing, not to
Okay.
paste in stuff in Chrome or Edge or Firefox, because I've seen it have issues, especially if graphics are involved, like what you'll see on a return label. The barcode stuff tends to be a graphic that's in that label.
Okay. All right. So, because Lori was having trouble because it seemed like in order to open the label, then they had to log into the Amazon account.
Yeah,
And
and
people,
that
of
may
course, don't want to
be,
give you
and I
their
mean, it
Amazon
is what
account.
it is. If the person's willing to log into their Amazon account on a library computer, you know, again, they're using the browser to do that. Don't print it from the browser. Have them download the label document, the PDF, to the computer. And then if you go to the download directory where that document is now sitting, if you not right click
Okay.
on it, there'll be an open with option. And if you don't have Adobe set to be the default, but it's installed, you'll be able to pick it off a list of apps and say, open this with Adobe Reader, and you should be
Great.
able to print it no problem.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Looks like Carrie in Valentine has a question. Our air printers work great and we rarely have a problem. And it's long been the policy at the Valentine Public Library that we don't allow people to email us their stuff. It is one of those things that I've just accepted. Is there a
Yeah.
downside to allowing people
No,
to send you emails?
No, there's pros and cons with everything. So the security person to me would say if you're letting them log in on the password connected Wi-Fi, your network is now wide open to them because they're in the secured Wi-Fi network. If you've got all your computers configured properly to not, announce their presence or share their resources to the network, you should be okay security wise. It's kind of considered a security risk to make your network open to the public so they can access your printers. Again, it all comes back to how your printers are configured. Some libraries, especially the bigger libraries where I supported, we had printers that were on our staff network and we had printers that were on our public network. And we did not allow the public to connect to our secured staff network that had access to our file server and our staff printers and our staff devices. We kept them on a guest network that we had printers dedicated to. In a large library environment, that's definitely the way to go. In a small library environment where every dollar counts, you want to get as big a value out of your printer as you can. So it's just, what you're comfortable with security wise. And that's the best, I guess I can answer that question. Is there's some other complicated things you can do. We have like things called VLAN and stuff that you can use to kind of secure that environment, but you have to have an IT person that really knows what they're doing and understands how it's set up. Because the problem is if that IT person goes somewhere else and you get a new IT person and it's not well documented, figuring out how that was all done can be a nightmare. So there's a lot of pros and cons into setting printing up on your network, making it available to public, making sure you dot all the I's and cross the T's on the security of it. It can get very complicated very quickly depending on, what level of security you think you need to have. For a small library where you've got the one printer that usable for everybody, as long as you go into Windows and make sure your devices are not sharing their resources with the network, you should be in good shape. That may have come into the past, that used to be how little businesses would share their printers, is the printer was connected to one computer in the library, and then that library, you could go and say, share this printer with, the rest of the network. That's a security vulnerability, of course, but it made it very easy to make a printer available on the network. Back in the old days when it was connected to a computer. The only challenge was that computer had to be up and running all the time for that printer to be available. And then they developed printers that you could attach directly to the network. And so it kind of moved it off of that. But yeah, the best answer I can give you is it depends. And if it's something you want to sit down and have a long conversation about of how you set that all up, we can definitely do that.
Okay. All righty. Well, gosh, we've already learned so dang much already this morning. We did.
One thing I want to talk about just really quick that I
Yeah.
got a lot of questions is Wi-Fi networks.
Okay.
A lot of libraries set up their Wi-Fi networks, and I don't think they understand some of the new device. Well, we'll start with the old way. So in the old days, when you set up your router, you would actually have two different Wi-Fi networks. You would have one that was 2.4 gigahertz, and you would have one that was 5 gigahertz. If your router is so old that you do not have a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi network, it's time for a new router. I can't believe how many times I've run into that already. So the difference between the two and why we still support two different frequencies is 2.4 gigahertz gives really good long range connectivity. So you've got a building with lots of walls between you and them, or you want people to be able to access the library's network while sitting outside on the park bench. 2.4 gives really good long range, but it's slow. It's the slowest Wi-Fi connection you can have. And if you've got a good internet connection, it's probably still just fine. 5 gigahertz is the newer standard. Well, it was quite a few years ago. Actually, there's new Wi-Fi 6, which I can talk about a little bit. So 5 gigahertz gives you very, very fast network connectivity, but it's very short range. So when I walk into a library or I'm on my home network, you may on your home network have an option between 2.4 and 5. My recommendation is you always want to try and connect to 5 first. And if it seems like it doesn't work very well, then go to your 2.4, which will probably work fine. It's just going to be a much slower network connection. Wi-Fi 6 has been out for a couple years. We just now, this generation of devices coming out, support it. It's a new frequency that's been made available. It kind of gives a blend of, it doesn't quite have the range of 2.4, but it's got better range than 5, and it's much, much faster. And the reason that this was a big deal is I've got gig internet service at home now. So if I was using 2.4 or 5 gigahertz wireless, I was gonna, 2 was gonna probably only give me maybe 100, 200 megabit speed connection. 5 was going to give me maybe 300 or 400 megabit speed connection. The 6 gig stuff now can actually support a 1 gig connection. So if I'm connected on a 6 gig device, I'm getting what I'm paying for my internet service. So it's all about speed. And the new iPhone 15s now support Wi-Fi 6. The new Google Pixels now support Wi-Fi 6. The new tablets. If you're buying a new desktop or laptop, they support it now too. But of course, you have to have a router that also is supporting the new standard. At my house, none of my devices that I have currently support Wi-Fi 6, so I'm fine with my router I have right now doing the 2.4 and the 5. And I actually ran Ethernet wiring through my house to wire all my computers back up, so I'm getting the full 1 gig speed I'm paying for with CenturyLink now. So that's just a little thing about Wi-Fi network. I see some confusion there of why am I seeing 2? What's the reason? I've seen libraries just connecting everything to 2.4, even though the router's sitting right next to their computer, and they could be connecting to 5 and have a much faster connection. And that's where, like you're doing speed tests. So let's say I've got 100 megabit internet connection with my cable provider, and I connect my device at 2.4 and do a speed test, and I'm only getting 20, 30 megabit. It's like, well, crap, I'm not getting what I'm paying for. Well, you probably are if you do it from a wired connection, but you're probably not going to see that speed if you're doing it from a Wi-Fi connection. So just a little info there on the Wi-Fi network. Again, if you're not sure how your Wi-Fi is configured, the newer devices have the ability where you don't advertise 2 different frequencies. It just looks like one Wi-Fi network, and then between that router and your device, they're supposed to be smart enough to figure out what's the best one for your device to be on. And that was a thing they did to simplify it for the home user. It works pretty good, but again, if for some reason you've got that type of router and everything's only connecting at 2.4, we may want to turn that feature off and display two different Wi-Fi networks so we can know which one we're connecting to. Unfortunately, on the iPhone, if you connect to a Wi-Fi network, it won't tell you what speed, what frequency you're connected at. I don't know why Apple doesn't give you that information, but they don't. On a Windows computer, using Wi-Fi, you can right-click down in that corner where you'll see your network connection, whether it's like a fan shape for Wi-Fi or a screen with a cable for a wired connection. If you right-click that, excuse me, and go into the properties, it'll tell you what kind of network you're connected to and what kind of speed you're connected at. And as we're seeing libraries move to 1 gig fiber, sometimes now we have to consider, well, do you want to think about having the staff computers back on a wired connection? You're able to take full advantage of the high-speed internet service you're getting. Again, if that's a conversation you'd like to have, kind of plays into E-rate too. If you're looking at maybe the special construction or using category 1 to pay for the higher cost of your internet service for a higher speed, that's again something that needs to be considered. Is your internal network going to give you the performance you need to take advantage of that new high-speed connection you're paying for at the library?
So I'm wondering, with all that you have on your plate right now, are you running like a crazy man? I mean,
It's kind of the double-edged sword. So the NLC, we're just super excited, to be able to offer these services to our libraries. But I know there's probably a lot of pent-up demand and need. So it's kind of like, sock it to me, baby, and we'll see what happens. And when my bandwidth gets filled up, then, maybe that's a conversation where do we need to go find another one of me to help with the load. But right now, I'm able to take on, any of the support work you need, and I'm happy to help.
okay, because I wondered if you were so
I
busy
think that
you
would be a
didn't.
really good problem to have.
Well, I was just so excited when I heard that this was happening, that you were going to be available to do consults via Zoom or even on site. That's the
Yeah,
piece of
so
it too.
I've
They
done
do
some
let
router
you travel,
upgrades to a
right?
couple libraries that when we talked DNS filter and they've had a 10-year-old router that couldn't do hardly anything and was giving really lousy Wi-Fi connections, and that gear is really cheap now for, a small library, a consumer grade router, a new one that can support the new Wi-Fi 6 stuff. We can get a nice consumer grade router that for $100, and not only
Really?
provide way better Wi-Fi service to your customers, it's just gonna, we can put the DNS filter on it, give you cybersecurity. If you're gonna do E-rate, if you are doing E-rate, we can turn on the SIPA filter piece of it, make you SIPA compliant for E-rate, and just really, make things better. The other thing I see a lot at the libraries I work with is they have a very old Ethernet switch, if they're still using wired stuff. And a lot of those old switches peak at 100 megabit. So if you're going to get a 200 megabit internet connection, but you've got one of these old 100 megabit switches, you're never going to run any faster than 100 megabits. And again, those are very affordable. If you just need to hook up, 4 printers or 4 PCs and a printer, we can get a 1 gig switch for 50, $60 and take the old one out. It needs to get disposed of responsibly. Nobody's going to want it. Don't bother putting it on eBay or trying to resell it. Maybe your city has a policy you can't just throw it in the trash or send it to a recycler. You should send it to a recycler. So maybe it has to sit on the shelf somewhere for a year, unless, to make sure no other city department wants your 15-year-old Ethernet switch. But whatever rules you have to engage with, you can engage with. But the cost is very low. I'm happy to come out and do the upgrades if you don't have a good IT person that can help you with that. So again, just reach out to me and let me know. This is where you send me a picture of the equipment. I bring up the specs, say, yep, this is, you have, dinosaur done for network equipment. We need to get an upgrade in place.
Well, and that's what's so exciting too, is because it is terrifying. Because if I go and stand in Best Buy, I don't know, I can listen to the Best Buy guy or not, but I don't know what I need. And so this is what is so amazing about having you being able to
Right.
show us.
Right. And this could be really dependent on your building too. So if you have a building where maybe you have that addition that was put on, so you have the old firewalls between, when I say firewalls, I'm talking about construction now. You have a fire barrier built into that wall that's your routers on one side of the library and you need the Wi-Fi on the other, but you have that hardened wall for fire protection, can really kill a Wi-Fi signal. So then do we need to consider not maybe just doing a router, but do what we call a nest, where it's multiple devices that create a unified Wi-Fi network throughout the library. So, you've got that one meeting room, you just can't get a good connection in. We can, though that's a little more expensive, that's maybe about $300 to buy a nested Wi-Fi router setup, but it lets us have really good Wi-Fi service through the library. And once somebody connects to their Wi-Fi in your library, they can move through the library and maintain that connection. It's not going to some of the libraries back in the old days, we'd have a router in this end of the library and a router in that end of the library. If you went to get into the library, you would lose your first Wi-Fi connection, and you'd have to reconnect to the new section of the building you were in. And then if you left that section of the building, you'd lose your Wi-Fi connection, and you'd have to connect again. And the new nesting technology allows us to basically solve that problem, make that go away.
Oh, that's terrific. The Amy out in Sutherland said she just checked and she realized she was on the 2.4, so she just switched over to the 5 on her Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so what'd be interesting is do a speed test at 2.4 and then do a speed test in 5 and see what that difference is.
Yeah, that'll be a great improvement. Lori said, we just bought a new projector, ended up needing a new DVD player. Who knew that DVD players now cost $25? So it's kind of like a tech version. If you give a mouse a cookie, when you buy a new projector, you might need a new DVD player. And if you,
Well, my girls gave me crap when I bought a new DVD player, but I worked at the library and the library had a huge selection of DVDs. So I brought DVDs home from the library all the time. I still do. So I still use my DVD player a lot. I know it sounds goofy, but if you want to watch an old movie, they're not available on streaming, and Netflix is, if you don't know, they killed their DVD subscription service.
they did.
So you can't have Netflix won't send you old DVDs anymore. So like when my girls were growing up, one of my favorite movies was Little Shop of Horrors, and I couldn't nobody streamed it. And so I was able to get the DVD from Netflix and show them some of my childhood favorites. Well, the libraries now have a lot of those older DVDs too. So,
Right.
I still use my DVD player a lot, but I'm probably getting to be a bit of a dinosaur with that, but it is what it is.
Well, and I live in a location where I think I'm under the signal. I'm right next to an elevator, the big corn elevator across the road, and they have a thing on the top of that elevator that distributes like the phone
Oh yeah, so they have the wireless on top of the water tower or the elevator in town.
elevator, and I'm across the road from it, so I think I'm underneath it. So I have virtually terrible phone service. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to stand out on my porch and hold one arm up, and yeah, it's just crazy. I can't get good service. So we don't do streaming. We need a DVD player. All right, let's see. Celine, or no, who is it? Celine has a question.
Okay.
Celine, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready. So we updated with the Biblioteca. I didn't know if anybody else uses that, but we've just had a horrible, horrible time with our gates. Has anyone else experienced problems with their gates not working correctly with Biblioteca?
Like security gates?
Security gates, yep.
are you doing RFID or is that still the
Yeah,
old?
we have RFID. We upgraded our self-checkouts, our software, and the gates, of course, took a long time to come in because they were back ordered, parts were back ordered, and then they just have never worked at all. And they've come out and they mess with them and they just do not work at all. And I think they have a curse, but it's been a year and a half and we paid a lot of money for those gates. So I didn't know if anybody's been through something like that before.
I have never used the security gates with the RFID systems I've worked with, so I can't speak to that.
So yeah, we can put out the word. I don't know how many of our libraries have security gates. I mean, I know Hastings and Kearney and I don't know. I don't even know if North Platte has gates, but I think theirs are older. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, keep your eyes open. If anybody sees anything out there, let me know. But
Yeah, that's a bummer.
yeah,
When, like you say, when you pay a lot for technology and then it doesn't work.
yeah, it's very frustrating for the staff and for patrons. And yeah.
So does it go off and make loud noises when
Oh,
nobody's, or does it not go off
oh, it
when
does
somebody
both.
has a
It
whole
goes
bag
off.
full?
It doesn't read right on the screen. Right now they've got it, they thought they had it fixed, but you can still walk down the center of the aisle and it won't beep at all. So, or if you have it right in front of you, and sometimes it beeps all the time. So we installed another internet connection up there to see if that would help with the, I don't know, they just have been horrible. And they used to be a really good company to work with. And I don't know, I'm at my wit's end with them, but yep,
Oh, bummer.
yep,
Yeah.
we'll get it.
Okie doke. Well, we're coming up on 11 o'clock. Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah, North Platte does have gates. I'm just not sure how new they are. So anyway, well, Sherm, I appreciate you coming out, or you didn't have to come out, coming on to the Zoom meeting for the late in December here. So I'll put out the recording of this so other people can watch it. So you may get more questions. You may get random pictures in your email. Who
That's
knows?
great. So I'm here to help. Just reach out and contact me. I'm happy to make on-site visits too. If it's a long drive to the library, I may try and set up where I'm hitting multiple libraries in the region. A few weeks ago, I made a trip out west where I hit 12 different libraries out in the Panhandle. It did network upgrades, DNS filter installs, and technology reviews. So if I get a lot of response, I may, try and set up, maybe I'm hitting kind of a chain of libraries as I'm driving out and doing the windshield time. But yeah, the Zoom remote has worked pretty good for us, a lot of stuff. And then if it's something like, okay, we have to do the factory reset because nobody knows the administrator password, then that's something obviously we would schedule to do on site so we could do the factory reset and then get everything reconfigured quickly and get the network back up and running properly. So just let me know.
Yep. All righty. Well, thanks again so much. And I hope this spawns a lot of questions for you. A lot
Yeah,
of
so
installs.
I am here to help.
All righty. All right, guys, we'll see you after the first of the year. All righty.
Happy
Bye.
holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas.